Jeff with Kudzucraft. Today I'm going to show you how I make my stringers. As many of you know, that's the one thing we don't offer. We just cannot find a consistent supply of good Western red cedar, which a lot of you have that problem. So I'm going to show you what I do. Now I start with a piece of, it's actually siding material. If you'll notice, it's planed on three sides and the face is left rough. Now, this was used for exterior siding. It was real popular for many years, and it's dropped from popularity around here, but it's the one wood I can consistently get. Now it comes as about 3/4 thick. I run it through the planer to smooth this side up and get it to my 5/8. Now you can run it, once you cut your stringers to size, you can run it through a table saw or a bandsaw, just resaw it and cut it down to width. I've got a planer, it's quicker for me, so that's what I use. Now next I want to talk about scarfing. I cannot find long lengths, as most of you, judging by the emails, you can't either. And if you'll notice right here, knot, there's another one here, it's kind of hidden over here. This is what I have to deal with all the time. Now I'm fortunate I can pick through and get the best lumber out of the bin, but I always have knots. It's just extremely rare to get a clear board. So what I do with my knots is I cut them out and then scarf them back together, and I'm going to show you how I do that. What I've got laying here is a piece of stringer stock. Now what you probably can't see in that video is there's a joint right here. It's actually a scarf joint. And a scarf joint is nothing but a long angle. 8:1 is the ratio, meaning you want for every inch this way, you want 8 this way. It's real easy just to measure down 8 inches over 1, draw the angle, and that's what it is, and we'll show you how to cut those. But as you can see right here, this one was cut on my jig. These fit together near perfect. Whoops, turn it over. You can see that joint. You can't even hardly see the line there. When you glue that up, you have such a long length down through here with proper glue. Got to mate. That's the key right here. So you got to cut them right. But if they mate together properly, you clamp these and you use a good wood glue, the joint will be stronger than the wood. If you took that and broke it, it's going to break. It may break at the joint, but it's going to take large hunks of wood out. Odds are it's going to break somewhere else. Let's talk scarf jigs. I do mine on the table saw because I can take a long stringer and I can cut a scarf in the middle of it. If there's a knot, say right here, I can cut that 2 slices, glue it back together, and I've still got a long stringer. If you use a radial arm saw or something like that, on most, there are exceptions to this rule, not on mine. I cannot cut anything but the end. I can't cut out down here in the middle because there's always something in the way. Now, if you look on the internet, you'll see a lot of examples of scarf joints, and a lot of them are just downright dangerous. Most of them would take, let's say this is a big, imagine this is a big piece. They're going to have like a sled right here. Oops, there's something on that one. Like you're going to have a sled, and they're going to cut a slot right through here, put the part across here. The problem is, and I'm going to use my other one here, shift to it. Now, first off, you notice mine's cut flush. Well, the reason for that is, so when you cut this little stringer off, it falls to the table. Why does that matter, you say? Well, two reasons. One, the little wedged end can easily get wedged between the 2 pieces of plywood, the slot there. I've had it happen. Makes that pucker factor get real high. Secondly, and the most dangerous reason, this is what got me, is you picture that sled here. Here's that piece laying here. I did something, was distracted for a second, left it running. I reached over here to turn it off, and what I didn't notice is this little cutoff was vibrating across the table. It got into the blade, and that blade's curling this way, 100 miles an hour or so. And you can imagine, that thing got launched at tremendous speed. Caught me right there on the thumb, and basically made a hamburger out of my thumb. Now, it's healed now. It's been a couple years ago. So that sent me on the quest to find a better jig. Now, there's 2 things about my jig. First off, notice where I got 2 handles. Notice where I'm standing. If something does get thrown back, I'm not directly in front of it like I used to stand. Because if that jig's over here, especially if it's real wide, you're going to use both hands to slide it through. Or if you got handles over here, see, I'm leaned over. My face is right in the line of that. One of those in an eye, and you're blind. Here's the other thing about mine. I use little plunger clamps. They're not something you can go pick up at the hardware, but you can order them online. And people say, no, that's not necessary. I'll just do them this way. I'll just take a little, get that out of the way. Take an F clamp and put that on here. You can put it the other way. And yeah, it works. The drawback is, of the risk I should say, is you're headed toward the blade. Just like when I got my thumb mangled, it only takes a moment of inattention to forget what you're doing, bump it, whatever, slide that in there, And needless to say, at the speed the blade's turning, bad things can happen really quick. So, even if you don't use my clamping method, you need something better. Over here, nothing on the blade side, nothing over here exposed. And then you have a fairly good chance of not getting hurt. The two handles are very important. They give me a place to put my hand. These are old plain handles I had laying around. You could make something up, but they put up right there. They give me a reason to grab that, keep my hands free, keep my face out of the line of the blade. And I think it's just a lot safer than most of them you see. It's a little more effort to work, a little more effort to build, but the safety factor is worth it. You don't want to go through that mangled thumb. It's not fun, and it could have been an eye, or it could have been much worse than just a thumb. Just to slide that forward. And one thing to keep in mind, I'll tell you what I'll do right here. You see that knot? That's one of the things I have to deal with. So I will cut, let's just cut that knot out and use it as my example. I'll run that down and I'll line it up so that the blade's going to cut it all off. Make sure it's clear of the blade. Wait till that blade stops spinning. It's long enough I can safely grab it. Then I go back and I'll slide this up. I've got it marked because I know where the piece lays, right there, and that will cut out the knot. This is the piece I just cut. Pulled it over here so you can see it. Pull those joints together. You pull that tight, and look at that, perfect fit. That's why I say you don't have to have perfect lumber. You pick the best you can, then cut these out. This joint is plenty strong. There's no danger of it breaking. I don't ever build a boat that doesn't have at least one scarf in every stringer. Sometimes some may have 3 or 4 depending on the quality of lumber I'm able to find at that time. Now I want to show you a little how I like to glue these up. Now that you've got your joints cut, you need to glue them up. You need 3 things: clamps, a good flat surface, and glue. I'm using a table that I don't want to get glue on here because it's a good place to film at, so I put a cheap piece of plastic down. Glue. You can use epoxy. Somebody's going to argue with me and say this won't work, blah, blah, blah. I hear this all the time. But what I prefer is Titebond 3. I don't get paid by them. They're not sponsored. This is just because I like it. It's waterproof. It works perfect in their applications. Epoxy will work great. There's nothing wrong with it. It's expensive. It's messy. You waste some every time you make it. I just don't like using epoxy. It has its places, but it's not needed here. Next, you need clamps. Pieces of, I guess that's 2-inch PVC, cut in little 3/4 inch wide sections. Cut down through here and split them. Open them up. Amazing clamps. Dirt cheap. I got a box full of these things. Use them all the time on stringers. Now, I've already done this once. I'm doing it again real quick. It's got glue on it, but I'm going to run through it again. Put your glue on. Put lots of glue on. You want to completely wet this. This cedar will soak it up. I like a little acid brush. You can use your finger. I'm just tired of peeling glue off my hands all the time. So I'll do that on both surfaces. I've already done this one. Bring them together. When you put them together, watch the overlap. Make sure this face is flush with this face, or maybe even slightly above. It's real easy when you clamp these with regular clamps. They go sliding apart and you end up with a bad joint and you've got to redo it. So watch that. And that brings us back to why I like PVC. An F-clamp will squeeze that joint and it'll slide apart. These don't do that. Take this, spread it out. They're rather strong. Slide it down over there. Get it lined up. Turn it loose. Watch it. Make sure it didn't slide. And didn't. Take a second one. Do it near the ends. If you want to, you can put a third one just to make sure. You don't really need it. Oops. Leave that overnight. Then tomorrow, once this is dry, you'll have the glue squeezed out. You'll need to sand it off. I like to take a block plane, sand mine up. You probably will have a little bump right here. I usually sand mine down just to smooth them up so it doesn't leave a bump under the skin. But tomorrow, once that is dry, this joint will be stronger than the wood. And I've never built a boat that didn't have at least one scarf joint in any stringer. I just cannot find the length. Some of them may have 3 or 4 even, where I cut knots out. But trust me, if you do them right, these work good.